And the Lord God said unto Cain, Where is Abel, thy brother? And he said, I know not. Am I my brother's keeper? I'll repeat, Genesis 4:9. And the Lord said unto Cain, Where is Abel, thy brother? And he said, I know not. I'd like to take this opportunity to welcome our speaker of the week, Mr. Komolo Hari. And my name is Oula Malit. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. There's this song, Ntulimba Jana. Let's just sing a chorus before I pray. Miguuni pake, we will begin. Miguuni pake Yesu. Miguuni pake Yesu. Time involves a lot of things. It even involves rest. Yeah. And I remember I usually have a lot of stories. You know, time involves rest. Sometimes you realize that you don't get so much rest because you're working onto something that you believe it's going to secure a future for you. And we can go to an extent, you can always have time for God, coming to church, going for studies, but at the same time you forget about resting. Some people here don't sleep. Yeah? It has been like a week. There's someone mwenye anakaanga hapa katikati. It has been like a week. There's someone mwenye anakaanga hapa katikati. And every time I notice him, hata before tuanze, anakwanga usingizi imemshika. And it's because, not that he wants to sleep, the fact that he's here. Yeah? Anaenda kwa bed aende alale, but he is here. But because he's so tired, even listening, it's very difficult. He struggles. And I realized that probably people are not getting enough time to actually rest, which is very important. I remember when I was in class 8, you know, when you're about to do your KCPE exams, I was given a serious lecture by my parents. And our teacher came and told us that, you know, the way you are here learning together in this same environment, being taught by the same teachers, you're making canes. I was used to canes by that time. So you don't finish all the homework. So unasema, ule jamaa anachapa kali, acha nimalize ya huyu niache ya huyu. And so that's how we used to survive. Like caning was like every day. Back when we were in primary, caning was the routine. So I decided one day to actually stay overnight. And so nikachukua maji baridi, nikaweka mguu ndani. In 2 hours, mamangu anakuja ananiamsha, ebu amka uende ulale. And it never worked because I was so tired having to try a theory that probably I need to do excess and try to do more so that I can achieve my future. What I'm trying to say is that time, being a good steward of time includes rest. We need to take time off to relax and unwind. We have looked at talents. That one we looked at on Tuesday, talented but with a feet of clay. I think I'm just repeating this for emphasis. And also at the same time, before the rebellion. After Satan rebelled, after the rebellion now in the Garden of Eden, you'll realize that Eve was told not to move away from the man. Yeah? Because there was a certain specific area where the devil is usually restricted in our lives. So the devil is losing, and each and every war he is losing. Since Genesis 3:15, when God said that his head will be crushed, he has been worried over time. He has been worried always. At first, he thought the seed was Abel. Yeah, he thought that Eve was going to give birth to someone. So he thought it was not Cain because Cain was not pleased by, God was not pleased by Cain. So he knew it was Abel. And he tempted Cain to kill Abel, thinking that Abel was the seed. He has always struggled trying to figure out who is this. But by the time he's figuring out that it's going to come from the lineage of David, he tries to make these people sin, like Judah. Judah, you remember? He committed adultery, yeah? And so the devil thought probably, what's going to take place? God cannot bring Jesus through a lineage that's already defiled. But still, because of God's grace and mercy, it still continued. And he has always failed in all those processes. Imagine if you're going to a war where you already know that you're going to lose. It's like it's now, you are reading, you are doing your studies, you're doing every assignment, but you know that you are going even to barely get a pass in your graduation. What motivates you? There's nothing that is motivating you. It's like, or for a man who wants a lady. If you imagine that you already know, however much you try to shoot your shot, it's going to be a no. What's still going to motivate you to call every day, to come up with better plans, but still you know you'll still fail? Yeah? And so that's how the devil feels every time. Yeah? And so the thing is, we need to realize that the devil is here with us, always around. Yeah? He is like an auditor. Yeah? Coming to look at how Christ and how God does his things. But God always, because of his mercy, despite the fact that we can sin and the devil say he should die, but because of grace, we are here. And so when we give tithes, we are like taking on an armor of God. We are taking on the protection so that God can help us. Some of the problems we have because we have tampered with things that we should not tamper with. And one of them is tithes. Yeah? And there are a lot of things there are other things that probably we are not doing according to what God expects us to do. Yeah? And so, I think the probably more about tomorrow. Today I want to cover two topics, the one for today and tomorrow, so that tomorrow I just want to go through what you have learned from Monday to Thursday, okay? So today I'll be a little bit fast. Yeah, so I'll start with let me start with the one that we had talked about. That is Genesis chapter 4, verse 9. If you read in King James, we have just read in King James Version. Let's read. I want to also to read another version here. Genesis chapter 4, verse 9. Genesis chapter 4, verse 9 says, and the Lord said unto Cain, where is Abel thy brother? And he said, I know not. Am I my brother's keeper? I'm reading from the Message Bible. Genesis chapter 4, verse 9 says, God said to Cain, where is Abel your brother? He said, how should I know? Am I his babysitter? How should I know? Am I his babysitter? God, right now, God expects us as Christians to be our brother's keeper. I want us to look this in two different ways. Yeah? One, to be your brother's keeper, in other words, like being kind to people around you, people in need. Yeah? You remember like the Good Samaritan. Yeah. And sometimes in life, people who help you are people you never expected them to help you. And so like the story of the Good Samaritan, he was his brother's keeper. Yeah? And so another perspective that I want us to look is for you. Are you concerned about someone somewhere in this world losing his soul? That's the other perspective. And that perspective comes towards about mission. Yeah? Why we need to go for mission. And then when we are done with that, we'll be done with those aspects of being your brother's keeper. And then we will continue. So, yesterday, I want to ask you a question. You know, have you ever been in a situation where you feel like, acha nitumie Kiswahili, umeshachukia mtu na hajakufanyia kitu mbaya? Then unajiuliza like, I'm a Christian, I should not feel this. Why am I feeling this? Yeah? Or you see, yani mtu hajafanya, mtu pengine walking style yake tu. And inakuudhi tu. And sometimes you ask yourself, how do you expect to be your brother's keeper? Yani, how do you expect now to be kind, to love this person the way Christ expects us to do? And you ask yourself, what's wrong with me? The other day I told you, religious people are very dangerous people. You know, religious people wanted even to control how God runs things. And let me give you evidence. You remember how the Pharisees, how they were telling, Jesus is telling them it's good to heal on a Sabbath, but religious people are telling, no. Let someone die. It's like, acha suffer, we'll consider his case on Sunday or any other day, but not Sabbath. And religious people, it's not bad to be religious. The only thing, let me give you a definition of religious. A religious person, I had wrote it somewhere down, and I'd written it somewhere, but a religious person is a person who depends on himself, and is a person who also think that he can do something to like he can do, when he does good things, he pleases God in kind of a way, but like depending on himself, in thinking that probably he is the one who has, like, who knows how to do things. And so, looking at the story of the Pharisees, these Pharisees, like, let's go to Luke chapter 18, verse 9. Let's use this. Luke 18, verse 9. Luke, the book of Luke. Luke 18, verse 9. It says, "And he spake to this parable unto certain which trusted in themselves, that they were religious and despised others. 2 men went up into the temple to pray, one a Pharisee and the other a publican or a tax collector. And the Pharisee stood and prayed thus with himself, God, I thank thee, I am not as the other men, extortioners, unjust, adulterers. And then he say, I fast twice a week. I give tithes of all that I possess. You're looking at this person, and he can even say that probably, I don't do I don't eat tura on the road. I don't call ladies on the road. Like, there are a lot of things. I feel like you probably feel like probably you can do a lot on your own. And these people, whenever they saw Jesus walking with sinners, how did they feel? They felt bad. They felt, look at him, he's walking with the sinners. And what was wrong with these people? There's that feeling inside them that they could not get rid of. The reason why these people, these people were the only people who had reformed in food in the whole world. If you look in Leviticus, we see the Israelites having a culture of there are certain foods they could not eat. And not only reformation concerning food, it was concerning other things like hair, etc., all those things. And these people are still the same people who crucified Jesus. What was wrong with these people? Why? Why did they have to do this? Why did they have to tell God? God is the one who inspired these writers of the Bible to write this. Then God comes down, and then you tell God, no, you should not do that. It's like you're the one who now knows more than your creator. What was wrong with these people? And that, when we answer that, we'll realize what was wrong with Cain. Why Cain asked, am I my brother's babysitter? Should I be taking care of my brother? Let's go back to the book of Genesis. The book of Genesis, chapter 4. I'll just read fast, okay? And Adam knew Eve, his wife, and she conceived and bore Cain and said, I have gotten a man from the Lord. And she said again, bear his brother Abel, and Abel was a keeper of sheep, but Cain was a tiller of the ground. And I think the Bible starts here with but. It's like there's something wrong with Cain. And verse 3 continues and says, and in process of time, it came to pass that Cain brought of the fruit of the ground an offering unto the Lord. And Abel also brought of the firstlings of his flock and of the fat thereof, and the Lord had respect Abel unto his offering. But unto Cain and his offering he had no respect, and Cain was very wroth, and his countenance fell. And the Lord said unto Cain, why art thou wroth, and why is thy countenance fallen? God already knows why, yeah? But God goes to an extent to ask him, why? But you know, when the Bible mentions about Abel, it mentions some key points. One of them, it says, is firstlings. Yeah? It's like Abel had put God first. That's one thing that is really mentioned there. Now God comes and asks this question. Why are you sad like that? And then verse 7, if thou doest well, shalt thou not be accepted? And if thou does not well, sin lieth at the door, and unto thee shall be his desire, and thou shalt rule over him. And verse 7 here, God tells Cain already what the problem is. You know, when in verse 7, if thou doest well, but if thou does not do well, sin lieth at the door. In other words, for Cain, actually, because his sacrifice was not accepted because of there are many reasons that his sacrifice was not accepted. Yeah? And at the same time, Cain was someone, actually, he became like tough-headed. But I like how the fact that, despite the fact that you don't do what God expects you to do, he can still come and talk to you. Yeah? Imagine, God could have just left Cain. We sikia vibaya. We would sikia watu wanasemanga siku hizi sikia vibaya na huko. Atunakuja tunaletea hapa. Enda kwa ile kondo usikie vibaya. But God here comes and he portrays something. And even if you notice in the parable of the prodigal son, the father there represents God, right? And where was the father by the time they were ending that particular story? The father was with the person who was feeling bad. He was not celebrating with the person who had returned. He was left with that person trying to encourage his son that, why feel bad? Your brother has come back, why feel bad? And he was left there trying to encourage his son. Yeah? And so one thing we realize is that there's sin in us that you are born with. Yeah? And if you combine that with being religious, it can destroy you. Yeah? It can destroy you. It can take you being your brother's keeper will be very difficult. For example, if you realize you have decided that probably you have reformed, and in terms of maybe music, and then you go to one of the members here now, you listen, and usikia nasikiza music ingine. Na utasikia vibaya, hata utasikia tu utoke kwa nyumba. Yeah? But how do you expect to save such a soul, to bring such a soul to Christ, when you already feel bad in the first place? How do you expect to do that? It's like it's not there. Then what's the secret? What's the secret concerning being your brother's keeper? What's the secret? How can we do that? Before we go to that, I want us to go to 1 Kings. I will combine that with this, then we'll come up with a solution and end it. 1 Kings chapter 17, verse 19. 1 Kings chapter 17, verse 19. Let me just open it quickly. Yeah, so 1 Kings chapter 17, where is chapter 17 here? It is, then verse 19. And he said unto her, give me thy son. And he took him out of the bosom and carried him into a loft where, and he cried unto the Lord and said, upon the widow with whom I sojourned by slaying her son. And he stretched himself 3 times. There's where it begins. It begins from, verse 17. And it came to pass after these things that the son of a woman, the mistress of the house, fell sick. And his sickness was so sore that there was no breath left in him. And she said unto Elijah, What have I to do with thee, O thou man of God? Art thou come unto me to call my sin? And he said unto her, Give me thy son. And he took her out. I think this is not the one that I'm looking for. I'm looking for the one of Zarephath, the Zarephath widow. Is it the one? Where she is being told, yes, verse 13, it's the one. Verse 13, it says, And Elijah said unto her, Fear not, go and do so as thou hast said, but make me thereof a little cake first, and bring it unto me, and after make for thee and for thy son. This widow is poor. The only thing that he is left with, if you read from verse 12, I have not a cake, but a handful of meal in a barrel and a little oil in a cruse. Yeah? He has something so little that probably will not last days. And then the man of God comes. Yeah? Imagine today. Labda unaenda kuinama hata kesho, but leo nikao kuna food yako ya mwisho ya kukula. Then this man of God comes. Yeah, and you want him to pray for you to help you, so that God can help you. Then he tells you, leta ile mandazi ulipaka kule leo usiku. Kwanza. Yeah? Alafu ndio, hiyo ingine baadaye, hiyo ingine tutafikiria baadaye. And so, in other words, what he's trying to say is that it's about putting God first. Putting God first. And for you to actually be in a level that you can be your brother's keeper, it's very difficult for you to try that on your own. Utaudhika na watu. And the first thing that you need to do is to put God first in your life. Yeah? Cain did not put God first in his life. If he had listened to God, what God had wanted him to do, then Cain would not have ended up in a place where he had to kill his brother. Yeah? And so there's another thing that I wanted us also to look at. There's kind of, I like how God views things. God looks inside. He looks inside. There was one time in Luke, I've forgotten actually the verse, where Jesus went to a Pharisee. He used to go to the Pharisees a lot of times. And actually, he was never afraid of telling them the truth. So there was one time Jesus went to the Pharisee's house. And that day, Jesus didn't wash his hands. And he started eating. And then the Pharisee said, how can you eat without washing your hands? Yeah? How can you eat without washing your hands? And Jesus told him, you see, you people look at the outside. You look at what people should do. Rules hivi. Unafuata hivi. People should wash hands. People should do this. People should stand up. People should kneel down. All. But they forget that God looks inside and not outside. Jesus did that intentionally so that he can bring the point home. That God looks inside. And he knows, actually, that the kind of person you are. You might be coming to church here. You might be singing here, take my life and let it be. But when you go outside there, you can't be your brother's keeper. You feel it's a burden. It's so hard for you to, even if you try to do it as a Christian, there was someone who was telling us how he pays for his relatives' fees ndio asionekane vibaya. Naona, like ndio aonekane na support family. You see, that's not the case. That's not the case that God does not want us to reach a level where we are like that on ourselves. Yeah? And so the solution to being your brother's keeper always is to depend on Christ. And it's only him that can make us good and kind. If you want to be good, if you want to be kind, you can't be. Trust me, the Pharisees tried. Iliwashinda. You look at how many times walikuwa like they saw what Jesus did, and they always wanted to get Jesus to be on the wrong. so that they can arrest him and even kill him. And this is the one who created you. You want to kill him because you have not accepted that you can be good only when you trust in God and also depend on him. Yeah? And so being your brother's keeper involves also going for mission. Let me give you a story. A well was being dug in a particular country in UK. And when this well was being dug, you know, mnajua vile well inakuanga dug, wachana hizi zenye siku hizi wanatumia machine, long time ago. Like watu wanaenda kwa Kijaluo tunasema kukunyo. They go and dig, and then they place on a particular bucket that has been tied on a rope, and then it's lifted. So this well was so big that there was not only one person, but at least a number of people. Yeah. Then something happened. The ground started shaking. And some people managed to get out, but one person remained. One person remained inside. So akafunikwa na hizo mawe. And so what people did, people actually wanted to try something out to get this person out because this person probably is not breathing. So they started like thinking, what should we do? Wakaenda wakajaribu kuchukua mawe, wanajaribu kubeba wakitoa. They start to remove all these stones, but it becomes so difficult. And they can't. So they relax and say, what should we do? And they remember they don't have time. This person is dying. We need to hurry. We need to think fast. And so they run to the town. They call everyone in the town that, come, let us go help. There's someone who is dying in the well. Yeah? Everybody, watu kama mtu alikuwa konda anatoka anakimbia, we are going to save someone's life. Just one person. Yeah? Until almost the whole village comes. And then they help to remove some of these stones. But still, they're not sure if this person is alive. So they ask him, are you still there? Can you listen to us? And the person says, yes, I'm still here. Listen, now hearing the fact that you have heard that he's still alive, though he has very few minutes and is dead, because probably he's not breathing well. Now, ndio wanakuja na psych sasa. No, this person must survive. And the whole village takes that task and decides that finally, they managed to remove this person out of there. Remember that day, how the whole village celebrated. Hata watu walikuwa nachukiana, niko sure walikula pamoja usiku. Because something great had happened. We saved one of ours. We saved their life. And the question comes, mortal's life, this life that we can die anytime, can bring joy to such people. At the same time, just one person, the whole village celebrates because of one person. You see the psyche that these people have just to save one? As Christians, we are now being called not to save just the mortal life, to save people, so that to help God, we're not a kind of helping God, we're doing our duty. To do a duty of saving souls for eternal life. Amen? Now this is eternal life. And it's not only even one person. It's many people. Yeah? Imagine now, we are not just trying to save these lives that we can save today and tomorrow it's gone. Someone needs you somewhere so that their soul, so that they can also enjoy eternal life. You see the zeal that these people had. If you look at the zeal that these people had, they said that they are not sleeping. They have to ensure that these people, this person is saved. And we should be like that in our lives. We should not be comfortable. We should not just sit around and thinking that and people's souls are dying. Yeah? There's this song, I don't know if you know it in Kiswahili. We can sing it in Kiswahili and English, both. Roho za watu zikifa, Bwana akikuita, usiseme kwa uvivu, hakuna kazi kwangu. kwa furaha anza kazi ile aliyokupa, ukajibu mara moja, nipo Bwana nitume. While the souls of men are dying, if this person was dying in this world and people were just quiet, people going about their own business, this person could have just died like that. There could not be, that celebration would have not been there. And that's the same way. We have mission that's coming up. Souls, while the souls of men are dying, let none hear you idly saying there is nothing you can do. There is more you can do. You need to have that zeal to save these souls. Just like if one of us faints right now, everyone will be shocked. Everyone, endia maji. Hey, endo ulize dispeka imefunguliwa. Hey, nani daktari? Hey, like there is rushing, trying to, because we want to save this particular person from dying. If a human life, yeah, that cannot be lost forever right now, because when you die, it's like you sleep. If for that, kwa Kiswahili walikuwa nasema sembuse, yeah, if we can protect a human life like that, what about the soul of someone that we can see them for an eternity? You think about that. I want us to go on ahead because time is moving. We'll just conclude about that before the time ends. I want us to look at another aspect of another topic. Then we'll crown them, all of them together. Yeah? And so another topic is about our bodies being the temple of God. I think we know that. We have read these verses that we know very well that our bodies are the temple of God. And sometimes it's something that usually sometimes when it comes to reforming also, there are people who are on this side, people on that side, when it comes to etc. Today, I'm not going to talk about meat or cassava. Yeah? I want us to focus on mental health. Because another thing that's affecting us, let me give you probably, maybe I can mention something about what you take inside your body before I go to the mental health. You know, I used to love soda, and you could not tell me to leave soda. Mi kila nikienda supermarket nachukua 2 liters. Sichukui chini ya hiyo 2 liters. And so someone told me that soda is not good. I tell them, you don't know. You just have no idea. You know, when I'm relaxing, after a long day, I just take soda. Sometimes I call and just drink and listen to stories and laugh. Life was good, drinking soda. But it came to a point where I started to have stomach issues. I could not sit down. I could not do anything. Like, tumbo ilikuwa inaniuma. Unajua kuna ile tumbo inakuuma, enye kuna design ukikaa hivi inaacha. But kuna ile yenye hatukae aje haiwezi acha kukuuma. And seti inaniuma kwa uchungu, but tumbo inaweza kukuuma na kuambia mpaka unaweza ingia chini hiki kiti. Yaani tumbo inaweza kupeleka mbio. And by the time I was realizing it was this soda, tumbo ilikuwa imeniuma almost a month. And then I left the soda. Then one time again I decided, pengine nilipona. I returned to it again and realized that iliniharibu tena tumbo vibaya sana. And when I go to the hospital, they don't have a specific drug that wanaweza nipatia to reduce the acidity. Wanipatia tu dawa yenye inakusaidia for 2 hours. At least you can relax for 2 hours, then ikuume kidogo. Yeah? And so I used to eat a lot because at least when I eat, I realized that the corrosion ilikuwa inaenda, like your acid ikimwagika, most ilikuwa inaenda kwa the food. Yeah, so I used to walk like, unaona hii bag niko nayo, unapata iko na mandazi ndani. So nikikuja hivi kanisa, 30 minutes nikisikia, unaona niko na bag natoka naenda nje. Yeah, it reached to that point. Naenda nakula, ndo narudi. After 40 minutes tena mnaniona tu nimesimama. Ile tamwambia watu let's stand with song number 360. Mimi nimechukua bag naenda. And people are wondering, mbona hii bag uachi chini? Nyamjui. And it's because sometimes we fail to assume these health issues. But health is not about you being holy. It's about you guarding your health, which is something more important. Even when you're going for mission, we wouldn't want people who are sickling. Imagine some kienda na mi mission. Yeah? How am I going to survive? Juu mimi inabidi hata tukienda door to door, mimi nabeba chakula hapo. And mtu akituofa chakula na mimi tumbo inaniuma na nyinyi mnakataa. I'll tell you nitawapata mbele. Sometimes we assume these things, but they bring us to that level. And so today I wanted to talk about mental health. This is not the first time we have heard of this mental health. And the other day I was speaking to engineer, there is engineer Okwany, Andrew Okwany. How many know Andrew Okwany? You know him? Yeah, he is organizing a particular seminar for actually digital addiction and something about what the young people nowadays consume so much in life. I'm looking for something here. Yeah, so what is mental health generally? Yeah, it's kind of like physical health, and it cannot be defined in the absence of illness. And many people suffer from this mental health. There was a particular lady I met when I was in about third year. And you know, I was considering about dating. And so she was a good prospect. And so I said, maybe I should get to know her. And after some time, when I was now, ile mlishapata di namba yake mnaongeanga. And then one day I meet her cousin and namuuliza nani yako wapi? Ati nani ameenda Ngong. Kwani Ngong ameenda kufanya nini? And then ananiambia ati ameenda kwa sponsor wake. Ati na mkaa huko how long? Ati say 4 days. Yeah, it's called giving up. So I left that story. Did you know that lady was, at that time she was at second year? She was known in the school also. But alikuwa anachukuliwa tu na Prado kwa gate ya shule. And she thought life was good. Alipatiwa weekend anapatiwa at least 5,000. And she's very happy. And she thought life was going to be like that, like that, like that. And she went mad. Our family didn't have money, but now Komadari Hospital. Actually, no one knows the cause of what a mental health illness came from. We don't know if the money these sponsors were using were devil worshippers or etc. or anything. And she did not hold a close relationship with God. And her mental health deteriorated. She is no longer useful. Her parents, it's like they have lost their daughter. So ako mental health facility, Madari. And so mental health is something that's very serious. Yeah? And so people suffering from unhealthy thought patterns. We have thoughts that we usually, like you think of a lot of things. Personally, I had a problem with anxiety because I remember there was a time I was an elder. I was also the person looking for money to actually go for missions and other church projects. At the same time, I'm the chairman in another group. At the same time, I have friends. At the same time, I have family, not family like my family, like watoto wangu, but my brother, my parents. Yeah, I have to also to get time to actually talk to them. I was thinking about a lot of things, but I had anxiety, and my thoughts were unsettled. Yeah, and so people with problems at the feelings level may get upset when faced with small difficulties, feel unwarranted envy or resentment. Yeah, and probably lack of empathy. Yeah, and so what we are being told, and some people go to an extent of avoiding social contact. Ushaisikia mtu anasema anataka kudelete WhatsApp, and you ask, probably because she wants to stay away from people that she does not. Yesterday I was talking to someone, and she was telling me that she doesn't want even to talk to people. She doesn't even want anyone to call her. She's keeping herself distant. And she's saying, no, I can survive on my own. No one in this world is independent. Amen? You can not survive on your own. You need people. Yeah? You need people around you to help you in these circumstances. I remember yesterday I was talking about suicide, and when I mentioned it, people laughed. During that time, I remember ilikuwa hii time ya Ambassadors of Christ, and also walikuwa wametoa hiyo album yao after they had an accident. And they were singing this song, ni kwa nini umeyaruhusu. Me and them were feeling kind of the same thing, because I felt like I was giving up in life. And a friend of mine gave me that CD. Yote tulikuwa tunatumia hizi CD mara mingi. CD ndio ilikuwanga hizo enzi. Yeah, back in 2012, 2013. And so akanipatia CD ilikuwa na hiyo song. But it gave me hope. I imagine probably if I did not have this friend around me, probably I could be so down. Yeah? Maybe I could have made a stupid decision. Yeah? And I could be having so much unsettled thoughts. So we need people around us. We need to be stewards of mental health. Yeah? Do you not know that that's in 1 Corinthians chapter 6, verse 19, saying about our bodies are the temples of God. And so we sometimes think this is only focused on what we eat. It's also focused on how we think, our thoughts. The Bible, it has been mentioned countless times that we need to guard our thoughts. Yeah? And also apart from our thoughts, it's what we consume. Our generation, it's going to come to a place where food inakuharibu mwili, and also at the same time, media inakuharibu akili. Yeah? Because the population is increasing, farmers, the global warming inafanya like the farmers are not reaping what actually they sow. Yeah? Enough of the food. And so GMO food, GMO food, they keep on coming. And so at the same time, the world is going technological. Yeah? Phones. Nowadays you can meet over the phone, you can call over the phone, you can text over the phone, you read article over the phone. Phone. Yeah? You imagine, when was the last time you ulikosa kuangalia hivi simu? And so we are going to a place where we are going to have these two things at the same time, destroying our lives and destroying what God intended for us to have. So we are stewards of all assets that God has entrusted to us. And this includes our minds, feelings, emotion, and behaviors. Yeah? I want to speak about emotions. You need to be making emotional deposits in life. Yeah? Emotions generally follow thoughts. That is why managing our thoughts is so crucial to avoid harmful moods and promote healthy ones. Kuna mtu asubuhi unapata amenuna amekasirika. Yeah? Sometimes you find someone he's in a relationship and he has been in a relationship with someone who's going nowhere. The one thing that these big people who have already gotten married usually tell us is that usiharakishe kuoa, but as we are already like, you can never be fully ready, Yeah, we have the tools, but these people are never speaking about the tools. Sometimes if you ask people here, anza kuuliza kila mtu moja moja, unaenda wapi? Unaenda wapi in life? Most people don't know where they are going. Now, if you get acquainted to someone who is going nowhere, so by the time you're married, you think he has figured out, and then he has not yet figured out. Anakwambia, unamuuliza tunaenda wapi? Anakwambia tuende nowhere. Wewe nifuate, tuende. And you keep on just going. And then later on you have moods. You say that this thing is really bad. You say that he is not even what? He is not, or she is not what? etc. All these thoughts. And so we need to invest also in our emotions. We need to make emotional deposits, and at the same time, we need to avoid harmful moods that can be dangerous to us. So even in circumstances, as a steward of my emotion, I must learn how to manage and transform negative emotions into positive ones. You must learn how do you turn negative emotions to positive ones. Yeah? You talk to me good, and I realize Christianity has stages. There are 6 stages, all levels of Christianity. And the higher you go, the more you depend on God. That's actually how the Christianity stage works. And so someone who is in stage 6 like Paul was in stage 6. You know, Paul is someone ungepiga Paul kofi, unadhani angekurudishia kofi. Ungemtusi. Do you think Paul could abuse you back? It's like it's not there. Yeah? Mi usijaribu kunipiga kofi, you know? And so the thing is, we have a level, every Christianity has levels, level 1 up to probably level 6. Yeah? And so you must learn to manage this transition. You must learn how to endure painful emotional experience. We usually have painful emotional experience in our lives. Yeah? And so as a steward of your mind, your thoughts, and as a steward of your emotions, you need to learn how to handle these painful experiences, and to learn, like you can learn to endure them. Yeah? And so you can look at John 16 verses 20 to 24. You can read that. You just record it down, John chapter 16, verse 20 to 24. And in that passage, you'll realize that Jesus is addressing the unfairness of life, like when his disciples are harassed for doing the right thing. Yeah? And then Jesus promises their grief will be turned into joy. Yeah? Jesus, at that time, they are being harassed, but Jesus is trying to remind them that that their grief will later on be turned into joy. Yeah? And so to establish one new healthy habit in order to better serve the Lord with my mind should be the goal. Should be the goal of your life. We need also to be stewards of good behavior. Yeah? Because most of our behaviors come about as a result of thoughts and feelings that we experience. Yeah? And so some behaviors will also lead to emotional and mental disturbances. And so let's think about addiction. Yeah? There are people who have been addicted and it has made them to lose their lives. Yeah? Many believe that they cannot be victims of addiction since they never use drugs or alcohol, but there are also behavioral addiction. You might be behaving in a certain way that you are addicted already to it. Yeah? That you cannot leave it. You know, people usually think you don't take alcohol, you don't take drugs, you're okay. But you can have behavioral addiction, which is really dangerous. Yeah? And so there are all these kinds of addiction that we might have. And behavioral addiction can be like gambling. Yeah? Gambling. Gambling can be behavioral, is an example of a behavioral addiction. So necessary things in life such as work, shopping, etc. may become addictive if you use excessively and obsessively. Yeah? And so mental health is something that we need to take note of. Yeah? So we need to be careful about our mental